I don't even know why I'm writing this. Maybe to get it off my chest. Maybe because I'm still trying to make sense of what I've done. My name's Laura. I'm 35. I've been engaged to Mark, 32, for a little over a year now. We've been together for 2. Mark is the kind of man every woman says she wants. Loving, consistent, a little anxious maybe, but never once did I question whether he loved me.
He truly did.
That's what makes this harder. I work at a luxury resort in Northern California. The kind of place that has its own vineyard, a spa, and hosts destination weddings for people with more money than taste. I've worked here for nearly 3 years, and it's not just a job. It became a part of my identity. Mark and I don't drink much. Maybe a glass of wine here and there on a weekend. But drinking was never a big thing in our relationship. I told him 2 weeks ago that my department was going to do a winery tour soon. The winery on our resort grounds had been renovated and was reopening with a new tasting experience. The management wanted us to be familiar with the product we were selling. He didn't seem thrilled, but didn't protest either. The day came. It was last Thursday. I got to work at 9 as usual. Texted Mark when I got there. He replied with a "love you red heart." I said love you too. That was the last normal moment between us. Around 2 p.m., we started the winery tour. It was me, my supervisor Clara, 2 coworkers, Maya and Derek, and one of the owners. We toured the new bottling facility, walked the renovated wine cellar, and then sat for the tasting in one of the private rooms. We started with whites, then reds, then a few sparkling. Everything felt casual, professional, at first. But the owner left midway, and Clara got a call and had to step away. Maya followed her out. It was just me and Derek for a bit. Let me say this, I never planned to betray Mark. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't something between me and Derek. He's 38, tall, confident, divorced. We'd exchanged flirty remarks before. Innocent ones, or so I thought. But after 2 glasses of wine, boundaries started to blur. He sat closer. Our knees touched. He poured me another glass of the Merlot and said something about how red wine brings out honesty in people. I laughed. He touched my hand. I should have stopped it there. But I didn't. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the buzz. Maybe it was the attention. Maybe it was the feeling of being desired in a way that felt different.
Stupid.
Selfish. Reckless.
He leaned in.
I didn't pull away. His hand slid to my thigh. The next few minutes are a blur of poor choices, kissing, whispering, touches that definitely crossed every line. And then, bam, 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 a loud, aggressive knock on the door. I froze. Derek stood and straightened his shirt. I pulled my dress down and tried to fix my lipstick with shaking fingers. Before either of us could react, the door swung open. And there he was.
Mark.
My fiancé. His eyes were wide, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. His hands were shaking. For a moment, no one said anything. Then he shouted, "Why the fuck aren't you answering your phone? I thought you were kidnapped or something." His voice echoed in the stone-walled room. I didn't hear it. I stammered. My phone was on silent. I had no excuse. "I saw your location wasn't at the main building. I thought something happened to you." I was about to call the police. Then his eyes locked on Derek. Then back at me. "What the hell is going on here?" I tried to speak, but the words didn't come out. Derek tried to say it was nothing, that it was just work. But Mark knew. You could see it in his face. The color drained from it. The man who loved me, who I lived with, who I was supposed to marry, looked at me like I was a stranger. He didn't scream. He didn't throw anything. He just said, "I came here thinking you were in danger. Turns out, I was the one being played." And then he walked out. It took me a few minutes to move after Mark walked out. I just stood there in that tasting room, the scent of red wine and humiliation thick in the air. Derek tried to act like nothing happened, but I didn't even hear what he said. My ears were ringing. My chest was tight. I had this horrible realization that I might have just destroyed the best thing in my life for a few moments of selfish indulgence. I grabbed my phone. 10 missed calls. 3 texts. "Why is your location so far off? Laura, please answer." I'm getting worried. I'm coming there. The last one was sent just minutes before he showed up. I called him immediately. No answer. Again. Straight to voicemail. I walked back to the staff lounge like a zombie, head down, hoping no one had seen anything. I passed Claire in the hallway. She asked how the tour went, but I just mumbled something and kept going. By the time I got to my car, my hands were trembling. I texted him over and over again. Mark, please talk to me. Let me explain. It wasn't what it looked like. I'm sorry.
Please.
I was stupid. No response. When I got home that night, I could feel it immediately. Something had changed. His car was gone. The porch light was off. I walked inside and saw that his things were missing from the dresser. Not all of them, but enough to tell me he wasn't planning to sleep there. A folded note sat on the kitchen table. Just 4 words, written in shaky pen. I need some time. That was it. No yelling. No confrontation. Just silence. I sat on the couch for hours that night, staring at the TV without seeing anything. The wine was still on my breath, the taste of regret more bitter than anything I'd sampled that day. The next morning, I called in sick. I couldn't bear to see anyone at work, especially not Derek. I didn't even know if people knew what happened. I half expected it to be all over the staff group chat. Thankfully, it wasn't.
Yet.
Mark didn't come home the next day either. Or the next. He turned off location sharing. Blocked me on social media. Stopped responding to my texts completely. I called his sister, Janine, hoping maybe she could talk to him for me. She was kind but firm. Laura, he's hurting. I don't know if he's ready to hear from you. I didn't blame her. What could I even say? I had no defense. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't tricked. I wasn't unhappy in my relationship. I was just weak and selfish. And for the first time, truly hated myself. Derek texted me once. Hope everything's okay. Let me know if you want to talk. I never replied. I knew deep down he wasn't really sorry. He'd flirted with me before, knowing I was engaged. I let it happen. I entertained it. But he didn't lose anything I did. Over the next week, I began to replay everything in my head. Every missed sign, every warning my conscience gave me that I ignored. There were moments over the past few months where I knew I was walking a dangerous line. A few playful texts, late-night conversations that should have ended earlier, touches that lingered just a second too long.
And Mark?
He never suspected a thing. He trusted me fully. He thought I was safe, honest, loyal. Instead, I made him think I was missing, possibly in danger. And when he rushed to save me, he found me cheating on him. I'd always told myself I wasn't that kind of person, that I'd never hurt someone the way I had been hurt in past relationships. But now I was worse. It wasn't until Sunday night, 3 days after the incident, that I got a text from Mark. I'll be home tomorrow to pick up the rest of my things. I'd prefer if you weren't there. That was it. No, hi. No, we need to talk. Just done. I stared at that message for almost an hour, tears running down my face. Then I packed a bag and went to stay with a coworker, Maya. She didn't ask too many questions, but I think she knew. She offered wine. I declined. Mark came on Monday. I didn't see him, but I checked the door cam footage later. He was calm, composed, but broken. That was the worst part. He looked like someone who had been shattered from the inside out and was just going through the motions. He took his clothes, his books, the guitar I bought him last Christmas. He even took the framed photo of us at the Grand Canyon, the one where he proposed. He left the engagement ring on the kitchen table. It's been 3 weeks since that day. I measure time differently now. Not in days or hours, but in before and after. Before the winery. After Mark walked out of my life. I moved into a small studio apartment near downtown. It's temporary, but it feels permanent in the worst kind of way. Every night here is quiet, too quiet. Mark used to hum in the kitchen while making coffee. Now the silence just echoes. I used to think I enjoyed my independence before we met. I loved having my space. Now this space just feels like a punishment. Work became unbearable the moment I walked back through those doors. People weren't outright cruel, but I could feel the shift. Clara barely looked at me. Maya didn't ask questions, but her usual warmth had cooled. And Derek, God, I couldn't even look at him. We hadn't spoken since it happened. Every time he passed me in the hallway, I felt my skin crawl. Not because he did anything to me, no. Because I let him. Because I had no one to blame but myself. The worst part? No one said a word. But their silence was deafening. I knew the rumors had started to float. That Mark showing up that day, bursting into the winery, had started whispers I couldn't erase. Somehow, even though I was the one who created the mess, I felt like an outsider in my own life. There were moments when I'd still try to text Mark. I'm sorry. Truly. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I still love you. I miss you every second. Please, even if it's just to scream at me, I need to hear your voice. But all of them went unanswered. I even emailed him once, trying to say everything I couldn't find the courage to speak aloud. I poured my heart into it, admitted everything, didn't defend myself, didn't justify. Just pure, raw regret. No reply. Janine, his sister, called me one evening. Laura, I know you're hurting, but he's not ready. Honestly, I don't know if he ever will be. I cried for hours after that call. The truth is, I don't just miss Mark's presence. I miss who I was when I was with him. He made me better. Not because I needed him to be whole, but because he reminded me of what real love looks like. Stable, honest, patient. And I threw it away like it meant nothing. People assume cheating is always a symptom of a bad relationship, that the cheater must have been missing something. But I wasn't. Mark never made me feel unloved. He never disrespected me, never stopped supporting me. I was just weak, flattered by attention I shouldn't have wanted, tempted by something that wasn't even real. Derek wasn't someone I cared about. That moment wasn't about love. It was about ego, impulse, and stupidity. And the price? Everything. Sometimes I wonder if there was a moment, a split second, where I could have pulled back and saved it all. Maybe if I had just told Derek to stop. Or stepped out to call Mark back when he was worried. Or hadn't ignored my conscience screaming at me. But I didn't. And now I'm living with the silence that followed. I've started therapy. It was Mark's sister who recommended someone. She said, even if he never comes back, you need to understand why you did it.
She's right.
Because even I still don't understand why I'd risk the man who made me believe in commitment again for 5 minutes of meaningless attention. Nights are the hardest. The apartment stays cold no matter how high I turn up the heat. I still wake up sometimes thinking I'll hear Mark's sleepy voice next to me. And when I don't, the emptiness comes rushing back like a wave crashing into my chest. I keep the ring in a box. I know he left it on the table because it was over. But I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. It sits in my drawer, a reminder that I once had something precious, something people spend their whole lives searching for, and I let it rot in my hands. And for what? A few kisses in a wine cellar. A secret I couldn't even carry for an hour without being caught. Shame doesn't even cover what I feel. It's something worse. It's the knowledge that I may have lost the only man who ever truly loved me, and that it was my own hands that pushed him away. It had been nearly 6 weeks since I last saw Mark. Not since the day he came to gather the rest of his things and left the ring behind. Since then, I'd been surviving in limbo, floating through days, drifting through guilt, trapped in a loop of memories that refused to fade. I knew I couldn't move on without answers, not really. I didn't want to fight or plead. I just needed to know where he stood. I needed to face him. Even if it hurt, I waited until I felt strong enough to see him again. At least, that's what I told myself. I still had a spare key to his apartment, the place we picked together when we first decided to move in. I never used it after the split. I respected the distance he clearly wanted. But I also remembered that he always visited his mother every Sunday morning like clockwork. He never missed it. I figured if I came by mid-morning, I could wait outside. Maybe catch him before he walked in. I drove there with my heart pounding the whole way. I don't know what I expected. Maybe tears. Maybe yelling. Maybe indifference, which scared me the most. But nothing prepared me for what I actually saw. I parked down the block, hands shaking on the wheel. When I looked up at his building, I froze. Mark was already walking up to the door. And he wasn't alone. A woman was with him. Blonde.
Tall.
Wearing a navy hoodie I recognized. My old hoodie, actually. The one I used to wear around the house. She had her hand wrapped loosely in his. I watched as he unlocked the door and let her inside, his head turned toward her as she laughed softly at something he said. He looked peaceful. There was no trace of the heartbreak I saw on his face in that winery room. No signs of a man still clinging to pain. He was smiling. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't just out of his life. I had been replaced. I backed my car out of the spot without ever stepping out. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove, numb and hollow, to nowhere in particular. Later that night, I wrote him one final message. No begging. No justifications. Just honesty. Mark, I saw you today. I wasn't spying. I just hoped to talk. I want you to know I don't blame you for moving on. You deserve happiness, peace. I broke something that can't be repaired, and I accept that now. I'm working on myself. Not because I hope to win you back, but because I never want to hurt anyone again the way I hurt you. I loved you. I still do. Take care of yourself. Laura. He never replied. And strangely, that silence gave me the closure I needed. I started focusing harder in therapy. I took accountability. I sat with the discomfort instead of trying to numb it. I didn't jump into distractions or rebound flings. I faced the hard truth of who I had become and who I wanted to be. I also reported Derek's behavior to HR, not as revenge, but because I realized how inappropriate it all truly was. The flirting, the manipulation, the way he encouraged something that never should have happened. He was quietly transferred out of our department 2 weeks later. Work became less suffocating. I stopped waiting for texts that would never come. I got rid of the wine rack in my apartment. I didn't want reminders anymore, not of that day, or that version of me. I still wear the engagement ring sometimes. Not on my finger, but on a chain around my neck. A symbol, not of love lost, but of a lesson learned too late. Some days are better than others. Some nights I still imagine what would have happened if I had just said no. If I had pulled away. If I had answered my phone. But the past doesn't care about what-ifs. It only remembers what happened. And what happened was this. I had something beautiful. And I broke it. Now I'm trying to rebuild something else myself. One day at a time. It's been a year since everything fell apart. A year since the wine tour. A year since I saw Mark's heartbreak in real time. A year since I threw away the future I had always claimed I wanted. Marriage, a stable home. Someone who genuinely loved me without conditions. And yet, somehow, I'm still here. Still breathing. Still carrying the weight of it all. But differently now. I don't cry every day anymore. I no longer wake up expecting to see Mark next to me. The apartment feels like mine now. My life, although lonely at times, feels like something I'm beginning to reclaim. Therapy helped more than I ever expected. Not just the sessions, but the homework, the journaling, the brutally honest conversations with myself that I'd spent years avoiding. I had to dig deep to understand what led me to that moment of betrayal. The truth wasn't easy to swallow. I was insecure. I was selfish. I sought validation outside of my relationship instead of being honest about my needs. And when I had the opportunity to protect the person I loved, I failed. Mark didn't deserve what I did. He never raised his voice at me. He never disrespected me. He trusted me with his heart, and I broke it for a man who barely remembers what happened that day. I've learned that cheating isn't just about sex or kissing or who touched who. It's about loyalty, respect, moments of choice. And I made the wrong choice. To the people reading this, maybe you're angry with me. Maybe you're judging me. You have every right to. I judged myself harder than anyone else ever could. But if there's something I can leave behind in this story, it's this. If you're tempted, if you're feeling lost, if something's missing in your relationship, talk. Don't cheat. Don't lie. Don't be a coward. Because no fleeting thrill is worth the destruction that follows. No secret moment is worth the cold silence of losing someone who once looked at you like you were their whole world. Mark has moved on. I don't know where he lives now. I don't know if he's still with the woman I saw him with that day. But I hope he's happy. I hope she loves him the way I didn't. As for me, I'm not ready to date again. I'm working on myself, slowly, painfully, but with purpose. I've started painting again. I joined a book club. I travel alone sometimes, just to remind myself that I still exist outside of my mistakes. But I carry the lessons with me. Every time I'm tempted to lie, even in the smallest way, I stop. Every time someone flirts with me, I ask myself who I am now. Every time I feel lonely, I remind myself that being alone is not the worst thing in the world. Being someone you don't respect anymore is. Mark, if you ever somehow read this, I'm sorry. Not for closure, not to win you back. Just because you deserved better. And I'm finally strong enough to admit that. Thank you for loving me when I didn't know how to love myself. I'm learning now. One day, maybe I'll be worthy of that kind of love again. But if not, at least I'll be someone who would never make that mistake twice.